been quite enthusiastic on blockchain and followed its development basically since the beginning. And that's the team, the core team that has built the product itself. But of course, we also have the forensic investigators who work on teaching us how do forensics work, and they're also building the algorithms on how that should be optimized. We have Keir Finlow-Bates, who's the most recent addition to the team, who's a mathematician. I think I quickly showed him briefly. Has lots of patents and is really experienced within blockchain and how to really analyze data that is going on there, on the sense of not only geolocation, which is something that we're adding, but also the cyber security aspect of things. And we also have two main advisors on our side. And these advisors are also key for us because one of them is actually working at one of the bigger exchanges in the Nordics. He's also been involved with the Financial Action Task Force, as well as the European Commission and Europol, on kind of finding good regulations for the compliance. He's not only a shareholder, but also our main advisor on the regulatory side. And we have another advisor who has been working a lot with us and has understanding on how exchanges work, how the blockchain is built, and has also helped us with the logic of the tool. So everybody's expertise coming together has really been the thing that makes this tool work.
So then,
yeah.
Hi. First of all, thank you for answering. Ram, is it okay? Do you want to answer anything else before I ask also my question?
Go ahead. All of you guys, just jump in, please.
All right. So first of all, pleasure to meet you, and thank you for your time. It is much appreciated. I actually want to go back into the business model canvas and a little bit go to the basics, because what I feel here is that you guys, and probably especially you personally, you're really, really top-level expert in your field, which is great. But I think it's also a disadvantage when making this kind of canvas analysis. And I want to ask you a few guiding questions, if you let me, so that I can refine what is it that you guys actually doing and where's the edge in it. So my first question, very simple one. I see a few notes about the problem. Are you able to give like a problem statement in one sentence?
Well, yeah, I would say lack of compliance tools in the industry for cryptocurrency trades.
All right, and when you say that problem statement, who is the target? Like, who is the user? Who is the customer for that problem statement?
So it would really be anybody who is willing to trade with cryptocurrencies, like company organizations who are either trading, exchanging, or just simply accepting it as payment. And that is due to the 5AMLD regulation that we have now.
All right.
That's B2B or B2C?
It's B2B mainly B2B.
Yeah, so one of the things that I see here, from first impression, you have several customer segments, but I think it would be reasonable to assume that some of those segments are more professional than the others. Some segments have much more resources than the others, and probably like the ones who are more resourceful, they're also to develop some internal tools that you might not be even aware, although you guys probably, huge experts. Yes. So a problem statement that starts with lack of tools, usually it's not a valid problem statement that you would be actually able to defend for a long time, especially given the large accounts, which I assume those are your main targets. So what I would expect to try and understand more is for each segment, what is the most important problem or big problem, and after you made this analysis, market segment would be the largest or the most eager to adopt your solution. That's very important.
I think in that respect, Gil or Christian, you guys could probably give from your own point of view from the bank, what is really the problem that you see?
Maybe I take this one first, Christian, then you can jump in. So hi guys, my name is Jill. I'm with Silicon Valley Bank. I find first of all, thank you for the invitation. I find Valega, I find the tool interesting. And I've worked in the past with some players who try to come into this, let's call it financial crime segment area. And
Muss ich nachher nochmal gucken.
What I think some of them found difficult was, first of all, and this comes back to what Nimrod, what you were saying is define the targets. Because Nimrod mentioned maybe you are up for the big accounts, but what I found back then is that going for the big accounts is very difficult. Because if you want to come into such a market where regulation is very high, and if you make a mistake, regulators are directly onto you, and you will suffer reputational loss as well. You need to prove that your solution works. So my question to you guys would be, and I don't know how far you are in your development, what's your go-to-market strategy? How do you approach the customer?
Yeah, so we have actually, let's say we have been developing this tool for 2 years, and we only started commercializing it now in late October of 2019. And the reason for that is because of the extreme sensitivity of the tool we're building. It is, after all, a compliance tool. It has to follow regulations. It really has to work. We cannot just put out something there and hope that it works really well, and then all of a sudden our clients would be in problem and in having risk because they used our tool. So during this project, what we have actually done is to try and get first the government on our side. And we figured that if we can get the government to fund our first steps, then we have already reached quite a long path, because we knew that they were very against these kind of things 2 years ago, especially. So once we actually managed to get the Finnish government, they actually did invest money in our company and allowed us to pursue the beginnings of technology, not only in the prototype stage, but also right now the R&D. And we became the first company in the Nordics, if not Europe, but at least the Nordics, to be able to get the grant from the government to pursue a technology working directly with cryptocurrencies. So not blockchain, but actual cryptocurrencies. So that has been our market strategy, is to actually be able to use them as kind of a reference. And of course, then using the blockchain organizations here in the Nordics to really allow for open communication with them. So that has allowed us to bring in one of the biggest exchanges in Europe to become one of our clients. And from there on, we have been really following closely the regulation and working with, okay, the Nordics and the Baltics is where we have started, right? And it's really going through the blockchain associations, having them talk about us and promote us, and been joining events. So that has been the main kind of go-to-market strategy that we've had. But also having as much open communication with fintech companies and law enforcement in general, updating them constantly on what's going on, what we're working on. And we recently had a pilot with the tax authorities as well, and are constantly working with the police, and have even been working with some cases pro bono at the moment to show this is what we're capable of, and this is how our tool works, even though it's still under development. So I hope that answers your question a little bit more.
I think it does answer. I think it's an interesting move that you try to work with the regulators or the government, so to say. If you could associate yourself, for example, with the FYUs from different countries, I think this would help definitely to get let's call it credentials within the market. I don't know if this is, you mentioned the pro bono. One strategy which I saw that one company pursued, which is doing something very similar as you guys are doing, just not on the cryptocurrency side. If they said it, they went to clients and said, use our tool for free for a certain amount of time. We install it, and tell us if our results are better than the one that you're using right now. For example, Optimize, I don't know, whatever tool you're using. And this was one way of getting in. I don't know if you might consider this.
Yeah, I mean, that is kind of what we've done, but we have done that towards law enforcement, right? And what we have also done is that we only, when we're looking at clients, right, we are kind of at the moment kind of targeting the low-hanging fruits, right? So the exchanges who are smaller, who cannot afford the 200,000 euro a year
Ben,
subscriptions.
can you zoom into the customer segments while you talk?
Yeah.
I'll have a quick look. Just turn
Absolutely.
it to the
Is that clear now?
The early adopters as well, so zoom out a bit. Thanks.
Yes,
okay,
exactly.
Go ahead, continue.
So yeah, so this is kind of what we have done. First, we have been offering our solution, or actually our services, to law enforcement, and we have actually worked a little bit with some Danish cases, and we have even been looking into some Swedish cases with some pretty big drug cartels, I guess would be kind of the word. And not only that, but also most recently on this child abuse case that has been going on, and we have been following up on that and doing our own kind of investigations as well. And then once we have the information on that, we will provide that information to law enforcement. And that's the first time we're doing this kind of pro bono, right? And that's been going on now for a few months. And we're also offering this to the exchanges, the smaller ones, the ones who are now facing struggles with COVID-19. We feel that, hey, you know what? We understand that you cannot pay lots of money for your compliance at the moment, so just use our service. And if you like it, once this is over, then we can add the other features, and then we, start paying. As that's kind of how we have pushed that. And it's exchanges, trading platforms, such as those who are fiat to crypto, and slowly working in towards cybersecurity and the financial institutions such as banks as well.
Sven, Jochen speaking. I'm still struggling a little bit to see where you're heading to in the long run. My feeling is maybe at some point in time you're facing a trade-off. Either you're one out of many tools, all these customer groups will use with a lot of competition, fulfilling one specific need of them. Or you might become the one and only compliance tool for one customer segment, like the authorities or the exchanges. I have a little bit issue believing that you can become the one and only compliance tools for all these different customer segments, because their needs are quite different.
I actually agree. So I think I think that is why it's very important for us to get to sort of niche ourselves into maybe one or two sort of segments where we believe we can sort of bring other value on it, but also depending on, for example, on the market right now. If the early adopters, for example, such as the small exchanges, which are the sort of low-hanging fruits, that was sort of also for us to get a proof of concept and see if we could really deliver for it. I do think that, for example, financial institutions, as they are now bringing in sort of virtual assets and into their sort of custody, I think that could definitely be a new market for us, but also, of course, the cybersecurity part. I do wish ourselves to sort of concentrate on maybe one or two segments, which will then be where we can get sort of more value out of it, instead of just sort of spread ourselves too long. We don't want to overstretch ourselves. So I think it's really good if we can find okay, this is where we believe that you should be focusing on first right now, and see what sort of results that gives.
For us, it would be very important to know how we see this session here also is to get some insights in those customer groups and to see how far the technology or the initiatives are, so that we can look where to go, in what direction, for what type of customer segments, on what to focus then in particular.
Yeah, hi, it's Christian from SVB. And I just wanted to ask the question, what's your sales cycle? And if you, for example, compare the sales cycles of your different customer segments, then you can see that, for example, if you want to place your product with an established big bank like Deutsche Bank, Commerzbank, or whatsoever, it will last minimum, I would say, for a year, and you have to be onboarded as a company, and then they will screen everything, not just your product. They will also screen your financial strengths on all of this, which means you have to prepare so many different documents and statements and whatsoever. And maybe you have the best product, but on that way to get a contract signed, you will die. And therefore, you should maybe more focus on the clients, and even clients that if you maybe you're not delivering what you're promising, that it not really destroys your entire reputation, might be the best. So start with the early adopters, with the really techie guys, and then grow and grow and grow. So coming back from I mean, you all know the story of Amazon. They started with a very boring product, selling books. And when they were the strongest there, they reached out to a similar product than CDs and videos. And then they became stronger and stronger. And if you can kind of copy this sales strategy with the early adopters, and then being the first and the biggest fish in the pool in that segment, then reach out to the next. But every VC you would talk to and ask the question, then you would say we can deliver to all the segments, client segments. He will walk away.
Christian speaks from experience. He's been working all his career in large banks, and he knows very well the onboarding process. He's been with startups onboarding to large banks, obviously. So it's a very good point. If I may, maybe we try and identify really what segments should they focus. And then I would like to go to Nimrod's point, which he then identify for these customer segments the problem. And from there, the KPIs, so measurable KPIs, perhaps. Guys, they're going to have many mentoring sessions. This is just their first one. So I don't know if we're right, we're wrong, but I think this might be a way to get about it. Please feel free to jump in.
I just have one more input, which I think goes in line with what Christian was saying. One thing, more or less maybe, one thing which you can try is you can also try to target what we consider multipliers. So instead of going out for the big banks, reach out to consultancies, boutique consultancies, smaller firms, and say, listen, we work hand in hand. We provide you our know-how, right? We train you, and you help us sell our product. And even if they wanna, I mean, I saw somewhere white label, right? They can white label it and use it. Yeah. This was a strategy that one of the companies that approached me and wanted to sell their product, which was similar to yours as mentioned before, tried to explain me their strategy, and I found it very good. And it's a very good way. As for example, if you, and I mean, maybe Deloitte or it's a big name right now for you guys, but if you have them selling the product for you, I think it's a way, it's a door opener.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for that feedback from all of you here. And like, we fully agree, and we really take that to heart, because we have been, like, our tool, we know that it can work for quite a lot of different segments, but then it's like, where do we get our initial proper growth from, right? Which are these low-hanging fruits. And what you mentioned there about having these multipliers as well, that's actually really important, because we have actually looked into that, and we have been working with that, and we are quite far in negotiations with at least 2 of these companies. But of course, that's as well, like, having these kind of co-sell agreements and such, they also take time. It's of course also like longer sales cycles there. But we are hoping to get in on that, not only for example, cybersecurity, but also on the financial institution side, so banks and insurance companies and such. So that's where we're kind of letting that work go. But then, of course, the work that we have personally internally been focusing on has been the exchanges, of course, and startups, and of course the service is open for private traders. Anybody who's trading above $1,000, they anyways need to kind of comply with certain regulations. So for them, you know, they can use that as well. But we haven't really looked into that deeper. We're focusing on exchanges and such.
But your activity with the Finnish government who invested into you, can you consider this as reference, as success story?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like so
that's in fact a proof of concept.
Yeah, I mean, it is from the innovation fund, right? So they innovate in companies who they believe in can pay back the taxes eventually, right? So us passing just the first prototype stage and showing that we could reach the targets that they set out for us, that was already a pretty good thing for the team, right?
A very good milestone.
Yeah,
definitely.
It was a very good milestone. And then to just months later be granted 200,000 euros on an R&D to expand into other markets, that was also a pretty big milestone for us. Because no other company had reached that of the companies of our site, our industry, and for it being Finland as well, really kind of put Finland as a leading actor when it comes to compliance within cryptocurrency. So that was, of course, very good, and we can definitely use that as reference. We reference that always everywhere.
To add maybe to what just Klaus said, there's also another aspect, which is reputation and trust. If you work with authorities, and and then several authorities from different countries use your service, this is something which generates trust among other market participants. You also can set standards via those authorities. If many of them use your solution, then maybe banks or other market players also will look at this, because they know the authorities have a similar view. So I like that approach very much. Gives you access to some government funding and reputation via the authorities. I think that you should follow that way.
Yeah, and we really do. Like, we really appreciate the time that they give us to actually test our solution and work with them. Absolutely.
Sven, may I ask a question?
Yes.
My understanding, the Finnish government invested in your company. Do they also use your product? So are they paying for the service, or are they, sorry for the wording, just investing and throwing some money at you?
They're just throwing some money at us. So this was the grant that we got from the Innovation Fund of Finland, right? There is a screening process, of course. They check like what targets you have reached and such. But yeah, of course, that is what it was. So they don't use our tool actively. So this was the grant that we got from the Innovation Fund.
Okay.
But of course, that opened up a lot of other doors within Finland as well. So that allows us to have open communication with law enforcement in all across the Nordics. Actually, we have a pretty good, solid communication with the Swedish authorities, law enforcement authorities, and also the Finnish one. So that has been quite a door opener in that sense.
Okay, absolutely, I understand, and you're selling it exactly in the right way. But I wouldn't be a little bit careful to use it as a reference for the product itself. You can use it. I mean, when you're starting a business, then you have to sell more than you already have. So it's absolutely right what you're doing, and I would do it exactly in the same way. But it's even stronger to have a paying customer as a reference, and you have to get there, even if it's just a small one, maybe being regulated by an official party, but a paying customer. This is, of course, a little bit stronger than, especially, and I mean, we now have a little bit changing times, and everybody tries to, because of COVID, to support everybody, and this will lead to very strange things, and you will see it in the future, that I can imagine that governments will invest heavily in young companies, and then they maybe just throw around the cash, and that might change the reputational effect in the future. It might be that I'm a bit too pessimistic on that side. I mean, it's good that they invest in a lot of companies, but the effect might be maybe a bit negative, and therefore I would say go and hunt the first paying customer and use this and build your storyline around this customer and this customer group, and from there getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Just an idea. I mean,
no, that's great. I mean, and I fully agree with you. Absolutely, fully agree with you. And we just actually brought in our first paying customer now in January. So that's, of course, now we're still like kind of getting the feedback from them and such. So hopefully we can use them as good references as well, because they are fairly big in the exchange scene.
Yeah, I think this is at top, and Christian made a very good point. That it's always, you know, if somebody is actually willing to put money on the table, it's a very strong reference, and maybe that's something you should, you know, elaborate on. And that's why actually I'm sorry I jumped in a bit late, so I don't know exactly what you talked in the first part. But so did you discuss, you know, a little bit more in detail what does the product actually currently do, and, you know, since you have the one paying customer, how do they use it?
Yeah, so actually, no, we didn't go through that. So they're actually using the monitoring system right now. So what they've done is that they connected the API, and it's just running on all on the trades that is running on that exchange. So it just monitors in real time and gives a risk score on the addresses or accounts that are sending the money, right? And that's the 3 risk scores that we have is actually yellow, red, and green. So if something is yellow, that's suspicious. So then they have to pursue that and see what's up. And that's what our tool provides as well at the moment. And the same thing with illegal, then they have the obligation to actually inform the authorities about that so that they can download a report and send it over quite quickly. It used to take quite a lot of time to do these reports, like several hours, if not days. But now we have been able to automate that quite a lot. So it takes mere minutes to be able to have a quick report that you then comply with the 72 hours that you need to do this. So that's what they're using right now.
So would that be then when you talk about your market segments, would that be the first customer group that you're addressing, you know, all the exchanges out there?
Yeah, exactly correct.
Yeah.
May I ask you a question, because we talked about that your customers are B2B, right? Sometimes you and you had the example that you can track everything from the past, from the first Bitcoin mined and who hold it, and so on and so on. Isn't it maybe an indirect, let's say, B2C argument to say, if you're trading and you use this platform, they will take care that no one ever trades a product which was and you can come back and look at the blockchain itself, which never were part of an illegal stuff. So that it's a bit like if someone sends around pictures and they have the wrong content, it might be that just having the picture and you're doing something illegal, but it wasn't your fault. So that you use the fear of the client to say, okay, if you use this product, then you're protected. So you will sell it B2B, of course, but you mirror this to the B2C side, and therefore have a stronger argument to sell it. Not really switching the entire.
I think that is a really good point, because we have been sort of since we don't have, because I think we have a little bit of a challenge in our startup, and is that we don't we want to do so many good things in the sectors, but we also don't want to stretch like too large. But when it comes to the B2C, this is something that is already available today. Like if you are a private trader, you can go into a platform. You can simply put your account address, which you're going to send money to. You will get all the report and transaction statistics, and you will get all the activity flags reported within seconds. Now the challenge we have is, of course, we have to market this for the B2C, and and then we have to put like internal resources. So we're thinking about where do we put our resources into which kind of segments in order for us to sort of speed up and accelerate. And B2C is definitely something that is already ready, and we could provide that from tomorrow. We already do, but we need to have a plan for it.
Okay, understood.
Sven, I think something locked there.
Yeah, absolutely. And like what Jonathan is saying is correct. And we have thought about actually doing that through the exchanges themselves, so that when we have an exchange that is using our service, they can actually reach out to their user and say, hey, you have these many tokens that you can use right now, and you can do all your searches, and make sure that you're safe. So then they're actually kind of doing the job for the exchange once that happens. But getting them to do that is, of course, a challenge as well. But just to quickly show you how it actually works, here are some example addresses that we usually use. So if there's something that is suspicious, you just type it in there and you'll immediately get this. And this is something that could work for the private people. And you can very quickly just get a report. And this is an actual right now representation of what's happened on that big blockchain. So you can actually see that really the report of what's happened on there. And we can see this is suspicious because it's been through a gambling entity. And we know this one to be fairly dodgy, usually involved with money laundering, unfortunately.
Could that gambling company be a customer of yours?
Absolutely.
You're just tracing here?
Absolutely.
Because running through your customer segments, I mean, if you take the fintechs out, you would have very, very long sales cycles with all of them. And what we know from the past, that the gamers, the gamblers, even the adult guys are the ones who are adopting really, really quickly in technologies like this. And being compliant and having monitoring for government authorities could be sales argument towards this gambling company or the whatever, gaming, adult, whatever. And I mean, be careful with that low-hanging fruit phrase. Where in B2B, it's really, really difficult. I always try to avoid the low-hanging fruit, especially in front of bosses or investors. But anyways, what I'm trying to say is, if you go after financial institutions, it's a tough one. You have to have them on your list and select if there is someone, an early adopter, the exchanges, the fintechs, the Bitwalas, whatever, those guys in every country. But go after the gamers, the gamblers. I would suspect if you select, or the esports guys, I don't know if they're all already on the blockchain, but if you select a few business developers on LinkedIn and pitch to them, I'm sure you get feedback from them pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Thanks for that. Yeah.
I would even say, just as an idea which popped up to my mind, in the past, when we tried to implement a new idea into Commerce Bank or other banks, for example, there was always the question, why should we do this? Is a customer asking for it? What's the potential size, volume, potential revenues, and all of this? So if you get a lot of B2C feedback, positive feedback, and you can bring the customers, the end customer, to a point that he says, why should I do this to be compliant? And then go to their platforms and exchanges and force them to do what they did in the past. Then the platforms will get the feedback. There's a huge demand, and we have to fulfill it. So you can use maybe use the end customer a bit like a Trojan horse. If you do a lot of marketing on their side, and they think, okay, if I use this product, perfect, they do it. And after a while, they are saying, why do I have to do it? Why isn't that a service coming from the exchange itself? And then they call the exchange and force them to implement this. Might be an idea or a strategy as well.
Mm.
This is Jochen speaking. There's also another aspect of customer segmentation we haven't touched yet. Look what you're doing right now. You benefit from Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies being transparent, public blockchains. You have access to all data. Later, you might also want to focus on security tokens or other decentralized finance products where access to the data, to the detailed data, is not so easy because it might be private blockchains operated by companies, banks, financial institutions, and so on. So if you don't work with them, you cannot access that data. So also have that in mind.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have thought about that and how we're supposed to tackle that in the future. But at the moment, most things are actually happening on Bitcoin, right? And that's 98% of the entire scope is happening on that. And I think that more and more when banks and the other side, the more centralized industry starts coming into this properly, it will be Bitcoin that is the start of it, and it will probably gradually change towards the banks or like countries' own kind of cryptocurrencies. We've seen the United States talking about this. We've seen many countries talk about this. So I think that will kind of be the shift. So in 10 years, it might not be Bitcoin, it might be the bit dollar or something like that, you know. So of course, then we want to be established enough to be able to have that open communication to really see what's happening. We know that many banks are now experimenting with blockchain transactions, and I think the most important financial provider for that would actually be Swift, an extremely old technology that is now working together with the R3 Corda blockchain on providing more blockchain-based transactions for banks. And we've seen huge banks do this. You know, you have HSBC, you have Santander, who made a very successful transaction during last year with this. Same thing with, of course, the Swiss banks working with this, Credit Suisse, sending money to ING. So this is happening. Like this change is happening, and as long as it's on the blockchain, and as long as we can get the initial contact with these banks to work with them, then of course we can also analyze those. But for now, we think that Bitcoin is the main one to look at and really learn how that works, so that we can be experts on that once the change kind of happens.
And just to emphasize sort of a little bit on what Sven said, if we look at one of the channels, we have educational courses. And from us, it's always that we always see that we have to educate sort of the people, especially the banks. And that's why it becomes a very long sales cycle for them, because we have to okay, so how, if you're not accepting Bitcoin today, do you really think that there's no money laundering happening in your platform? And most of what they think is like, no, but we don't accept Bitcoin, so there's nothing happening in this area, right? That is a very wrong, actually, misceptions that most of the people are sort of understanding, because what criminals want to do in the long run is that they want to actually use the banking platform for changing their money to normal currencies. And so what we are now educating the banks, for example, here in Finland, is that really know who are your virtual asset holders inside the banking platform, because you don't have any control what is happening otherwise. And that is where we're trying now to show that even if you are pro or against, like really like understand what is at least is going on inside your platform, to make sure that there is no bad activities, or you have high-end risk customers on KYC onboarding customers that you have no control over their virtual assets, and use our service to sort of get to know their holdings and make sure that there is enhanced due diligence on their virtual assets, and really use us as a partner.
We have 4 minutes, guys. Mentors, any last minute remarks before we jump into the next startup?
if you have that one choice, your ideal customer, which company, who would it be? If you can cherry pick today.
Like one actual company or just an actual segment?
No,
Yeah.
a company.
A company.
Company or authority, just make your favorite pick.
Well, you know what? I personally, I would say Interpol. That's what I personally say.
Good question. Just for me to clarify, so it's not only the Bitcoin blockchain that you guys have, right?
Right now, we actually analyze Bitcoin as the main one. This is why we try to be experts on that. But our system is completely fully prepared to be able to take in any other coin. We can do it tomorrow. It's just that we work with that due to the resources that we have. We have to focus on one of them, so we do Bitcoin, because we see that regardless if somebody's trading with Ethereum or using any other currencies to do illicit activities, somehow it always trickles back to Bitcoin, and then once that happens, we can catch them there.
Mm-hmm. Okay, very good. Nimrod, any final words from your side?
I mean, I have a lot of thoughts. I wouldn't be able, given the time restrictions, to give all of them.
The idea is at the end, please take your notes, guys, and I would appreciate if you drop Maria and myself an email with some feedback. That's and then we will do the startups. But we can always do side afterwards, meet face to face when possible. When this allowed.
So basically, I would love to help you guys with more deeper problem-oriented analysis, which I think you guys probably have all the knowledge, but it's not structured in a methodological way that would enable you to make a proper decision in terms of who is really your early adopter and who would be the best one to start from as a strategic move. So I'd love to help you on that. It's not a thing that it will be easy to do here, of course, in such big session. But I'd love to follow up with you guys on that.
Oh, absolutely.
And another thing is, and this is a very small kind of thought, is the metrics that you presented here are a little bit vague, and I'm not sure that those would be the proper metrics for you guys to adopt for growing your business. So I will refer you to a few online contents on that topic, but we can also have a little bit more thought on that thing as well.
Very good. So yes, we always we will follow up with each mentor, and you will have more particular sessions when a mentor has more to contribute.